World War II, humanity's darkest nightmare. 100 powerful historical photos are about to be revealed. Drop a one if you're ready to watch this video all the way through with me. In February-March 1945, 6 Marines raised the flag atop Mount Suribachi after seizing Iwo Jima, a Pulitzer-winning photograph that became one of the most enduring symbols of World War II. In Cherbourg, France, June 1944, German soldiers lay lifeless across the streets after U.S. troops broke through to seize the crucial port in the Normandy campaign. Normandy, June 1944. Landing crafts opened into sheets of gunfire. No one knew who would reach the sand and who would never take another step beyond the ramp. Smoke engulfed USS Arizona as it tilted and sank. In December 1941, Congress declared war, while Germany and Italy immediately retaliated by declaring war on the United States. In April 1941, Gudovac, Croatia, saw dozens of civilians executed by Ustaše troops, one of the war's earliest massacres, foreshadowing genocide across the Balkans. In 1941 alone, the U.S. produced over 3 million military vehicles, a triumph of industry before battle, laying the foundation for its role as the arsenal of democracy. In June 1944 at Normandy, Allied soldiers advanced through blinding rain. The storm didn't stop bullets, but it stripped war to its rawest courage, soaked in mud, grit, and defiance. In 1940, the first Allied bomb to hit Berlin didn't strike a military post. It killed the zoo's only elephant, a surreal casualty in a city bracing for total war. In the Netherlands, in late 1944, people bowed their heads in prayer for the victims who were killed, not for fighting, but simply because they belonged to the wrong race. On Guadalcanal's beach in 1942, fallen U.S. Marines lay beside an overturned landing craft, a stark reminder of the heavy price paid in the Pacific's first major Allied offensive. From 1939 to 1945, under Führer Adolf Hitler, Nazi Germany unleashed World War II, beginning with the invasion of Poland and dragging all of Europe into unprecedented catastrophe. 1941. Crete. German paratroopers' daring airborne assault reshaped modern warfare, but civilian suffering and contested intelligence failures during the Battle of Crete are often overlooked. 1944 over London, the German V-1 cruise missiles introduced terror from the skies, rapidly accelerating civil defense innovations and reshaping urban resilience across wartime Britain. If you liked this video, leave a 1 in the comments. Are you ready to share your thoughts with us on whether World War III will happen? Through crashing waves at Normandy, American troops surged ashore from thousands of ships. The D-Day landing tore open the gateway to liberate Europe in 1944. Paris bloomed with flags and cheers in August 1944, as General de Gaulle marched through Place de la Concorde, the city rejoicing after 4 years under occupation. In the frozen winter of Stalingrad, 1942, Red Army soldiers in white camouflage hunched over to carry the wounded, silently making their way past charred frames and shattered bricks. In 1933, before tens of thousands cheering in Nuremberg, Hitler raised his hand in salute, marking the moment the world began spiraling into dictatorship and war. The frozen Karelian Isthmus in March 1940 marked the end of the Winter War, where Soviet forces paid in blood for every inch of contested ground. In a French city just liberated in summer 1944, civilians returned home through rubble, stepping past German corpses, where freedom and death shared the same shattered street. From Stalingrad to Kursk, most German troops didn't fall at Normandy. They died on the Eastern Front, where the Soviets eliminated 80% of Hitler's army before 1945. Only 20% of Soviet men born in 1923 survived World War II. They weren't just drafted first. They were sent to the deadliest front lines with little training and even less return. Not in a single battle, but from 1942 to 1945, over 100,000 bomber pilots perished in Europe's skies. A slow-burning campaign fought in silence, smoke, and flak. In 1944, during bombing campaigns over Europe, more U.S. soldiers died from anti-aircraft fire and crashes than in beach landings, proof that the sky was deadlier than the sea. In 1942 in Texas, 12-year-old Calvin Graham enlisted in the U.S. Navy with a forged birth certificate, a haunting example of how patriotism often demanded more than childhood could offer. Over 75% of Germany's U-boat crewmen never returned. The North Atlantic between 1940 and 1944 became a mass grave without markers beneath the waves. At Stalingrad, from 1942 to 1943, the Soviet Union lost more troops than the combined wartime casualties of the US and UK, a brutal fact buried beneath later victory. In the mid-1930s, Hitler kept a photo of Henry Ford on his desk, and vice versa. Admiration crossed oceans, blurring the line between manufacturing and extremism. In 1942, Mexico City hosted Japan's largest World War II intelligence hub, far from Tokyo, but perfectly placed to monitor shipping lanes and Western diplomats under America's southern shadow. Tokyo narrowly avoided becoming the third atomic target after Hiroshima and Nagasaki. In August 1945, a delayed decision spared Japan's capital from yet another devastating chapter. After 1945, the world faced the numbers of 50 to 70 million dead. 80% came from the USSR, China, Germany, and Poland. Over half were civilians, mostly women and children. If this video opened your eyes about the war, leave a 1. Can you help us correct any wrong information in the comments? At Iwo Jima in February 1945, U.S. troops closed in on Mount Suribachi, where Japanese forces fought to the last man in tunnels, mines, and volcanic ash under relentless fire. In November 1942, Operation Torch marked the Western Allies' first direct assault on Axis forces, igniting brutal campaigns across North Africa and the Mediterranean. Allied landings in North Africa unfolded mostly on former French colonies, where Vichy troops hesitated, torn between orders and loyalty to a crumbling empire. Between September 1941 and January 1944, over 3 million perished during the siege of Leningrad. Most were civilians, starved and frozen in the city they once called home. On the Mediterranean from 1941 to 1943, British, Italian, and German navies clashed in a drifting front line where supply convoys shaped the fate of continents. After the Salerno landings in 1943, American bodies lay scattered along Italy's southern coast, a scene with no medals, just the brutal cost of freedom paid in full. In 1944, behind barbed wire in a Nazi camp, POWs stared outward, trapped not just in body, but in a slow erasure of identity that outlasted any sentence. The B-17F Flying Fortress launched from Lorient to strike at German targets. In May 1943, it demonstrated the Allied Air Force's growing reach and resolve. A still tank and laughing children amid rubble, likely France, summer 1944, where childhood clung to the silence between battles as innocence and destruction shared the same bombed-out block. Do you know which front this is? The wounded soldier stares straight into the lens, a moment suspended between life, death, and something nameless. It may have been the Eastern Front in 1945. On the deck of the USS Missouri in September 1945, Japan's foreign minister, Mamoru Shigemitsu, signed the surrender, ending the bloodiest war in human history. Among 20,000 French defense workers, many were impoverished Annamites, laboring quietly through the war, half a world away from home. Amid the roar of machines, Annamite workers stood silently on the production lines, performing simple, repetitive tasks to keep the war machine running. Digging trenches, building bunkers, clearing roads, African labor soldiers took on the heaviest loads. Their strength made them the backbone of French military infrastructure. In February 1945, snipers of the 51st Division occupied a ruined building in Gennep, Netherlands, supporting infantry during the bitter fighting to retake the city. In December 1941, a Japanese aircraft was shot down in flames as U.S. anti-air defenses roared back at Pearl Harbor, proving the battle was no longer one-sided. In February-March 1945, 6 Marines raised the flag atop Mount Suribachi after seizing Iwo Jima, a Pulitzer-winning photograph that became one of the most enduring symbols of World War II. The distinctive camouflage suit of British snipers was designed to blend seamlessly with the battlefield environment, widely employed in combat operations until 1945. A British sniper observed through his scope on the training ground. In July 1944, he prepared for direct confrontation with German forces on the Western Front. In 1946, Japanese soldiers discharged from service shared rare smiles after long years of duty. Their joy reflected a society beginning to confront war's trauma and rebuild. In Antwerp, on November 27, 1944, a German V-2 rocket struck a main intersection, killing civilians and disrupting the vital Allied supply route, pushing northward into the Netherlands. In 1941, a mother shielded her child during shelling in Krasnaya Sloboda, reflecting both the immense suffering and resilience of Soviet civilians under the brutal German invasion. In July 1945, a group of snipers trained at a French school as Europe emerged from war and soldiers prepared for new missions in the uncertain post-war world. William Patrick Stewart Houston, Hitler's half-nephew, served in the U.S. Navy. In the mid-1940s, this created a striking paradox, with family ties split across opposing sides of the war. The distinctive camouflage suit of British snipers was designed to blend seamlessly with the battlefield environment, widely employed in combat operations until 1945. In 1944, a Belarusian village was burned to the ground by Nazi forces. This tragedy reflects the brutal devastation civilians endured across the Eastern Front. Leave a 1 if you like this video. Japanese people in Toyama in 1955 worked tirelessly in rice fields, demonstrating a powerful spirit of recovery and determination to help the nation overcome wartime devastation. In 1943, 2 young women worked at the WTC training camp in Culford, Suffolk, highlighting the essential role of women supporting Britain's war effort beyond the front lines. By the time World War II broke out, most Annamite workers had little to no chance of ever returning home, a homeland half a world away. A tank crossed trenches during drills on the Bryansk front. In 1943, Mark Markov Grinberg's photograph captured the intensity of preparation and survival on the Soviet battlefield. American troops of the 3rd Armored Division posed beneath their tank near Marigny, marking the Allied advance through France in the summer of 1944. One moonless night over Germany in 1943, anti-aircraft fire stitched the sky, every glowing arc a calculation of survival for Allied pilots in the dark. In Italy, 1943, a soldier knelt to wrap his fallen comrade. No bugles played, only trembling hands preserving dignity in the midst of chaos and cratered ground. A narrow alley in France, 1944. A toppled motorcycle became a makeshift shield against sniper fire. War turned even scrap metal into fleeting chances of survival. In Lodz, after Germany occupied Poland in 1939, Catholic midwife Stanisława Leszczyńska quietly rescued over 3,000 newborns from extermination by sending them far from the camps. In May 1945, Germany officially surrendered, ending the European front. Scenes of exhausted soldiers laying down arms marked the total collapse of the Third Reich. At Monte Cassino, from January to May 1944, the Allies fought 4 brutal battles to break through Germany's Gustav Line in Italy. Slave laborers at Buchenwald concentration camp were photographed as soldiers of the U.S. 81st Division entered, exposing the horrors of Nazi crimes in April 1945. A British sniper observed through his scope on the training ground. In July 1944, he prepared for direct confrontation with German forces on the Western Front. In July 1944, a German sniper trained in camouflage at a French village as the Western Front battles reached their most desperate and ferocious stages. In 1946, Japanese soldiers discharged from service shared rare smiles after long years of duty. Their joy reflected a society beginning to confront war's trauma and rebuild. An elderly couple carried their son's portrait, a Japanese soldier killed in the war. In 1956, they walked through Tokushima, embodying grief that lingered long after the conflict ended. In July 1945 at New Mexico, the Trinity nuclear test transformed the Alamogordo Desert into the birthplace of the atomic age, forever haunting humanity with fear. Tokyo, December 23, 1948. Hideki Tojo was executed for war crimes, a gallows instead of a throne, closing Japan's bloody militarist chapter before the world could begin again. Hong Kong drowned in blood on December 18, 1941, as Japanese troops stormed in and launched a brutal massacre in the heart of the British colony. 4,000 Japanese troops landed in the Philippines just hours after Prince of Wales and Repulse were sunk. December 1941 delivered a twin blow that stunned both Britain and the U.S. In July 1945, a group of snipers trained at a French school as Europe emerged from war and soldiers prepared for new missions in the uncertain post-war world. In July 1945, a group of snipers trained at a French school as Europe emerged from war and soldiers prepared for new missions in the uncertain post-war world. A sniper of the 56th Division cleaned his rifle. In November 1943, he prepared for the brutal battles soon to erupt across the European front. In 1944, Sergeant H. A. Marshall of the Calgary Highlanders Sniper Section fought in Capellen, Belgium, highlighting the vital role snipers played in Europe's brutal frontline battles. Not stopping there, the photo recreates the image of sailors on the aircraft carrier Shokaku shouting "Banzai" as the Type 97 Kate takes off for the second wave. A death blow before the Hawaiian skies wailed with sirens. Senior officers listened intently aboard ship as Roosevelt's historic speech declared war, and in December 1941, America formally entered World War II. A Hudson Mitrailleuse swept over Egypt's pyramids, proof that in 1942 the war stretched deep into the Middle East, where ancient history collided with modern conflict. A French collaborator was executed by firing squad in Rennes, a chilling reminder of wartime justice and retribution, carried out in November 1944, after liberation. Drop a 1 if you like this photo. This is a Type 97 Kate, the main attack aircraft, taking off from the carrier Shokaku on its way to Pearl Harbor in December 1941. During the Gilbert and Marshall Islands campaign in 1943, U.S. Navy SBD-5 scout planes patrolled above USS Washington and USS Lexington, shielding the fleet from surprise air attacks.